Prayer isn't a request. It's a command issued in the only language reality actually understands. You already know this on some level, because you've felt it. A sentence spoken at the right moment that cracked something open inside you, shifted the weight of a room, changed the direction of a life. Your voice isn't expression. It's causal technology. The ancients encoded this in every sacred text ever written. Institutions spent centuries making sure you forgot. One sentence, spoken once with precision, is enough. There is a pattern running underneath every civilization that has ever risen and fallen on this earth. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. It shows up in the Egyptian temples. It shows up in the opening verses of the Gospel of John. It shows up in the Vedic fire ceremonies, in the Hebrew Kabbalah, in the Hermetic manuscripts that survived the burning of Alexandria. The same mechanism, hidden in plain sight inside every tradition that humanity has ever produced. This is not a belief system. Belief is what you reach for when the evidence has been removed. What we're talking about here is recoverable technology, something that was known, practiced, systematized, and then deliberately obscured. Not lost, obscured. There is a difference. And that difference matters enormously for what you're about to understand. Here is what I need you to stay with me for. Because there is a layer coming in this video, the architecture of the activation phrase itself, the exact four-part structure that collapses the distance between intention and physical outcome. And that layer only makes full sense if you've walked through everything that comes before it. The deepest part of this comes last. That is not an accident. That is how initiated knowledge has always been transmitted. You earn the mechanism by understanding the foundation first. Modern physics and ancient scripture are saying the same thing in different languages. The mystics called it the word. The quantum field theorists call it coherent resonance. The consciousness researchers call it intention as signal. Strip away the vocabulary, and you are looking at one claim, documented across thousands of years and dozens of independent traditions. Spoken language, structured correctly and delivered with full internal alignment, does not describe reality, it constructs it. Stay with me, because the proof that science buried, and the proof is specific, it has names and dates and declassified documents attached to it that comes later. Right now, we go back to the beginning. The oldest layer is Egypt, and what Egypt understood about language would rearrange everything you think you know about the nature of sound. The ancient Egyptians had a concept called Heka. Most textbooks translate it as magic. That translation is a reduction so severe it borders on sabotage. Heka wasn't magic in the sense of illusion or superstition. Heka was the primordial force through which the universe was spoken into existence, and more than that, it was the living technology by which a trained practitioner could issue commands that the gods themselves were obligated to obey. Not request, not petition. Command. The texts are explicit on this point. The pyramid texts, some of the oldest religious writings ever recovered, describe the pharaoh priest using Heka utterances to literally reorganize cosmic order. The words weren't symbolic, they were operational. Think about what that means for a moment. An entire civilization, one of the most sophisticated and enduring civilizations in human history, organized its highest spiritual technology around the principle that structured vocalization could compel reality to rearrange itself. They weren't praying to a distant deity and hoping for the best. They were operating a system, a repeatable, teachable, inheritable system built on the premise that language is not description. Language is causation. Now move forward in time and cross the Mediterranean. The Gospel of John opens with one of the most quoted and least understood sentences in Western history. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Greek term translated there as word is logos, and logos, in the Hellenistic philosophical tradition, particularly in the work of Philo of Alexandria, who was writing in the same era, did not mean a spoken syllable. Logos meant the organizing principle of physical reality itself, the rational structure that holds the cosmos together, the force through which matter achieves coherence. So when John writes that all things were made through the Logos, and without it nothing was made that has been made, he is not writing poetry. He is encoding a technical claim. Spoken, structured, intentional language is the mechanism by which physical reality is generated and maintained. This is not metaphor, this is cosmology. And then there is the Vedic tradition. Sanskrit mantra was not designed for comfort or community. The Rig Veda describes mantra as a weapon, specifically as a weapon aimed at the fabric of the cosmos itself. The word mantra breaks into two roots, manas, meaning mind, and tra, meaning instrument or tool. A mantra is literally a precision instrument of the mind, delivered through the voice. The Vedic priests, who maintained the fire sacrifices, the yajnas, understood that the exact phonetic pronunciation of each syllable was load-bearing. Change the sound, you change the effect. Not symbolically, physically. The entire tradition of Sanskrit phonetics, one of the most elaborate linguistic sciences in human history, was built on this single premise. Sound has structure. Structure has consequence. Consequence is physical. Here is the decode move. 3 traditions. 3 separate continents. 3 completely independent civilizational lineages separated by centuries and oceans. Egyptian Heka, Greek Logos, Vedic Mantra, and every single one of them is pointing at the same architecture. Language is not the map. Language is the territory. It isn't the finger pointing at the moon. It is the force that puts the moon in the sky. Actually, no. Let me say that again more precisely. Language, in its structured and intentional form, is the operating system that reality runs on. Not a metaphor for that operating system. Not a symbol of it. The thing itself. And every mystery school, every initiatory tradition, every priesthood that has ever existed, has organized itself around access to that operating system. The initiates weren't worshipping a god who controlled reality. They were learning to speak the language in which reality was written. That is what Heka is. That is what Logos is. That is what mantra is. 3 words from 3 traditions pointing at one recoverable, operational truth. Now, why did this knowledge collapse? Why do you sit in a school system for 16 years and never once hear the word Heka used in its correct technical context? Why is the Logos translated as word and left there, unexplained, as if the most cosmologically loaded term in the Hellenistic world is just a synonym for speech? Why are the Vedic phonetic sciences treated as cultural artifact, rather than as the precision technology they demonstrably are? Those are not rhetorical questions. They have specific, documentable answers. Answers that involve institutions, timelines, and deliberate editorial decisions made by people who understood exactly what they were removing from the public record. But here's what they didn't account for. The science didn't disappear. It went underground. It changed its vocabulary. It found new laboratories and new researchers who had no idea they were reconstructing something ancient. And eventually it produced evidence so specific, so documented, so impossible to dismiss that it had to be classified. We're talking about named researchers, named experiments. A declassified government document that says, in plain language, what the Egyptian priests encoded in stone 4,000 years ago. That evidence is coming. And when you see it, the gap between ancient scripture and modern physics closes completely. Here is the layer most people never reach. The experimental layer. The documented, peer-reviewed, declassified, measurable layer where ancient metaphysics and modern science stop being 2 different conversations. Masaru Emoto spent years doing something that sounds almost too simple to matter. He exposed water to words. Spoken words, written words, prayers, insults. And then he froze the water and photographed the crystals under a microscope. The results were not subtle. Water exposed to the phrase love and gratitude formed intricate, symmetrical, cathedral-like geometries. Water exposed to words of hatred and contempt produced broken, chaotic, asymmetrical structures. Beautiful versus shattered, order versus collapse, and the only variable was language. Now, you might ask, what does frozen water have to do with human reality? Everything. Your body is roughly 70% water. The Earth's surface is roughly 70% water. If language restructures the molecular geometry of water, then every word you speak is literally reshaping the medium you live inside. But Emoto was only the beginning. William Tiller, a materials scientist from Stanford, ran experiments that should have ended the debate entirely. Tiller demonstrated that human intention, when spoken aloud in specific, coherent forms, could measurably alter the pH of water, the development rate of fruit fly larvae, and the electromagnetic properties of the space inside a laboratory, not metaphorically, measurably, with instruments, with replication. The spoken intention was embedded into a device. The device was shipped across the country, and the target environment changed. Space itself responded to the word. This is not mysticism dressed in a lab coat. This is the mechanism the ancient world already knew and encoded. And then there is the document, the one that changes everything when you actually read it. In the early 1980s, the United States Central Intelligence Agency commissioned a research program called the Gateway Process. The declassified report, written by Army Lieutenant Colonel Wayne McDonnell, describes in extraordinary technical detail how human consciousness can be trained to interact with and alter physical reality. And buried inside that document, in plain bureaucratic language, is a description of how scripted verbal affirmations, spoken with precision and intention, were used to collapse probability fields and bend the statistical likelihood of physical outcomes. The CIA called it a technology. They funded it, they classified it, and then they hoped you would never find it. Why would an intelligence agency suppress a breathing exercise and some positive words? They would not, unless those words actually worked. The epigenetic research seals it. Dr. Bruce Lipton's work on the biology of belief demonstrated that gene expression, the actual switching on and off of your DNA's instructions, responds to signals from the environment, including the chemical signals generated by your own thoughts and spoken declarations. One coherent declaration, spoken from a state of genuine resonance, can alter which genes are active in your body. Your words are not just sound. They are biological instructions delivered to your own cellular architecture. Here is the decode move. The suppression is the proof. You do not bury a technology that does not work. You do not classify a document about daydreaming. You do not fund decades of research into the relationship between language and physical reality if language is just noise. The fact that this knowledge was hidden, compartmentalized, and kept inside classified programs tells you exactly what they feared. They feared you knowing that your voice is a precision instrument, that your words are not requests sent into an indifferent universe. They are commands issued to a responsive one. And now you need to understand the specific architecture of those commands. Because it turns out the phrase is not random, and the structure is not accidental. What you are about to hear next is the reason ancient initiates guarded this knowledge with their lives. This is the architecture layer, the layer where the phrase stops being a phrase and starts being a mechanism. Because here is the question that matters most right now. If language genuinely restructures reality, why doesn't every sentence you speak do it? Why do most words dissolve into air while others rearrange the field? The answer is structure, frequency, and the precise sequence of activation. The phrase is built in 4 parts. Each part performs a distinct function, and the sequence is not interchangeable, because this is not poetry, it is engineering. The first element is the words "I am," not as a grammatical opener, as a declaration of identity that collapses quantum superposition. In quantum physics, a particle exists in multiple probable states simultaneously until the moment of observation. The act of conscious identification, of saying "this is what I am," forces the field to select a single reality from the probability cloud. The Hebrew tradition understood this. When Moses asked the divine presence for its name, the answer was not a title or a label. The answer was, "I am that I am." Eye Asher, Eye, the name that simply asserts existence. Because existence is the first creative act. Before you can author a reality, you must declare yourself as the author. I am is the observer entering the field. The second element is the word command. Not request, not hope, not wish, command. The distinction is not semantic, it is structural. A request carries the frequency of lack. It implies that what you need is outside you, held by something else, and you are asking permission. A command carries the frequency of authority. It implies that you are the issuing intelligence, and the field is the receiving medium. The ancient Egyptian priests did not petition Heka. They became Heka. They did not ask the word force to move. They moved as the word force. I command is the directive that overrides the default programming, the accumulated static of doubt, habit, and inherited limitation, and replaces it with a clean signal. The third element is the target field. My reality, my timeline. These words are not possessive in the ordinary sense. They are coordinates. They lock the declaration to a specific domain of the field. Without a target, intention diffuses. It spreads across probability like light without a lens. With a target, it concentrates. The Vedic tradition of Sankalpa understood this precisely. A Sankalpa is not a general wish. It is a specific, stated intention that names its own domain of manifestation. You are not speaking into the void. You are addressing a specific layer of reality and telling it what to become. The fourth element is the alignment seal. Highest coherence. Source. These words are not decorative. They are the frequency signature that separates a command issued from ego from a command issued from the deepest organizing intelligence you have access to. The Hermetic tradition called this alignment with the all. The Sufi mystics called it fana, the dissolution of the small self into the larger will. When you seal your command with an appeal to highest coherence, you are not diminishing your authority. You are amplifying it, because you are aligning your personal frequency with the frequency of the field itself. The two waves stop canceling each other. They begin to reinforce. Here is the decode move. Every major tradition that preserved this technology built the same four-part structure into its most sacred utterances: the Vedic mantra, the Kabbalistic invocation, the Egyptian Heka formula, the Hermetic declaration. They all contain an identity statement, a directive, a target, and an alignment seal. The structure was not invented, it was discovered, and it was preserved across thousands of years because it worked. And here is what most people miss entirely. You do not need to repeat this phrase 10,000 times. You do not need years of practice, or a monastery, or a lineage. Speaking it once, from a state of genuine resonance, with all four elements aligned, is the entire method, once. Because the field does not need volume, it needs coherence. A single coherent signal, issued cleanly, is more powerful than a decade of scattered repetition. What you have not yet heard is the piece about your specific instrument, your actual voice, not the phrase in the abstract, but the voice that carries it. And that distinction changes everything you thought you understood about why this works for some people and not others. This is where it lands for you personally. You stop being a passenger in your own life. You stop being a victim of circumstances that seem to arrive from nowhere. You become the author, the one who speaks and watches the field rearrange itself in response. Relationships recalibrate. Financial reality shifts. Your body begins receiving different instructions, not because you wished harder, but because you spoke with coherence, with structure, with the full authority of your own identity finally declared. Now I want to hear from you. Write your activation phrase in the comments below, your exact words, because your declaration does not just affect your field, it contributes to this one. Every coherent voice added here raises the signal. Your words matter beyond what you can currently measure. And if this is landing for you, stay close. What comes next in this series moves into sacred geometry, the neuroscience of sovereign states, and the architecture of reality at the level where physics and consciousness stop being separate subjects. The age of hidden knowledge is ending, not because someone gave you permission, because you found your voice. You are not separate from the word. You are an expression of it. See you at dawn. Drop your activation phrase in the comments. Every word left there continues the initiation. Subscribe, and the next layer opens. The word was always yours.